there's too much wood that's in the pipeline that's rolling that's somewhere. I mean, you don't really have anywhere you can put anything right now, even if you own
Yeah,
it.
I mean, the thing that I've continually impressed by is, the end user's need for like more wood. Hey, where's this? I'm like, how can you be running low on that item, right? I mean, at this stage of the game, and the inquiry level just continues to be like, I mean, nonstop.
Yep.
But like I said, I don't know if it tops out, next week on, when January futures expire, or, it's like I say, 4 to 6 weeks. You know, I certainly agree with you. And my question, Charles, is okay, you know, where's end use consumption relative to production, right? I mean, if we're consuming at 1.6 million starts, do we have enough production to match that? Or do we have to go like last year? We went to a price that we created demand destruction, right? At $1,700, custom builders stepped aside, home center business slowed, and that was really the tipping point.
Now, here's the question, though. Do you think that tipping point was due to the fact that the actual end user saw the full veracity of that price increase? Because it takes so
Yeah.
long to drip and triple all the way down.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at that stage of the game, that was the case. Is that the price got pushed all the way through? We're not there yet.
So I'm gonna launch this, guy. So welcome to This Week in Lumber. Greg is coming to us live from an undisclosed location in Hawaii, deep beneath the Mauna Loa volcanoes, and Charles is coming live from Bishopville, South Carolina. We wanted to talk about lumber today and what's going on. I think overall there's a bullish consensus. Prices are telling us that. We went through the last 2 weeks, and Charles and Greg, we talked during those times of, is it going to be slow? Is it going to be busy? And both weeks before Christmas were busy. Somewhat after, there is some more wood showing up. I'm hearing things like this. Reloads are full, and guys are like, yeah, but that wood's all spoken for. I'm having a hard time with all of that because we know some big carload buyers that sit in very prolific areas in the country, and they're like, I'm not buying cars right now because there's plenty of reload wood being offered around me. And this is what I'm hearing a lot of. Now, prices continue to move, and there's a lot of bullishness out there, obviously, but at this point, I would have to think that the shift of inventory from one end to the other there's probably a pretty good build going on, guys. What say you on these, Greg?
Well, I mean, as Charles and I were talking a little bit before, I'm in this stage where, okay, is end use consumption really outpacing production? I mean, first quarter is the lowest production quarter of the year, so we have that as a backdrop. And when you throw the inventory accumulation on top of it, how much extra inventory is accumulated in the system? That's always the question that we're trying to answer. And when the last guy buys that last truck, that's you want to be on the lookout for that guy. I don't know who he is, but I don't want to be him.
No.
Yeah.
Me either.
Charles, what's your thought to that?
I think it's a very valid point. There's a lot of unknowns because of, once again, how quickly things transpired. You would think that what happened in the beginning, middle of last year, that would be kind of fresh on everybody's mind. But it seems like, when you had $650 9-foot studs, it's too expensive. Then they go to $1,100 and they want all you can produce. So it's almost like lumber's turning into a designer purse fetish.
I thought that was more like 1,800 was like can't get enough.
That is true. I'm talking about this go around. So I mean, it's real intriguing to kind of see how it all flows. And Ash, you hit something too, as far as end users not buying direct cars very much anymore because there's so many available trucks coming out of reloads. And the fact that those reloads need to move wood in order to bring whatever they have rolling in. They have to make room for it. So the only way to entice anybody to buy any volume is discount. One thing that I saw, the week of New Year's, week of 12/27, there was $100 discount on 249 foot in spruce. Various origins, right? But what caused that, and how long is that sustainable? I think if we do experience a position to where there's a give back, it's going to be a very, very small window, as long
Yeah.
as money stays cheap.
Well, one thing I like to look at, and I see a little bit on the platform here. What are physical trucks trading on the ground relative to what they're printing at, the quote unquote print price, right? From what I'm seeing right now, and some items there's a premium, but then some items certainly there's a discount to the actual mill price right now. Am I fair in saying that, Greg and Charles? Would that make sense in some cases, or which surprises me?
I mean, given the run up that we've had and the fact that we know that, there was a bullish tilt and a lot of people felt pretty comfortable buying inventory. There was, we could talk a little bit about the basis is, we ran for 60, 90 days where, futures was giving you a clear buy signal because it was $100, $150 or $200 above the cash. So you had an exit to lock yourself in. We've seen that basis come in a lot tighter right now. And, and that's one of the things that I'm watching is if I look at an item that was, $200 under its historical value and the board was $100 over, and now that item's moving up, it is, back to par or $100 over, that's something that I'm watching careful. Just one other thing on when we talked about reload inventory and the difference between this year and last year. Last year, we came into the year with multifamily short the market for the first, for a significant amount of wood in the first half of the year.
True.
I don't think you have that this year. What I saw was through September through December was every multifamily job that got sold, the wood was bought. And that's a lot of the reason why there's so many, there's a bunch of reloads that are jam-packed with wood is that's all sitting in place for those jobs, whether they're starting, this month, next month, or, maybe April.
Yeah, and how many of those multifamily guys that have wood on the ground have such a high price in it? They're rolling that inventory right now and replacing it at different numbers, right? Maybe that's where some of the extra wood's coming. That's a great observation. Great, that's true. That's the other thing too is I've heard, I don't know, that the big boxes aren't pulling as hard as they pulled last year at this time.
Well, I mean, the one thing is that big box cost, they're price takers, they don't have, 60, 90 days of inventory costed $400 or $500 below the market. Their cost moves up on the market very quickly based on their programs. And so, that flow through, Charles, the difference is pro yards, that may lag much longer than big boxes. But Ash, good point. That's something you're going to have to watch. I mean, obviously, historically, big boxes are building inventory this time of year for spring, right?
Yeah, and another thing I'm trying to get my head around, Greg, is where is production going to come in at? I mean, are we up in production right now? Everybody's like, we look at everybody talking about BC being down. What is the production numbers actually going to come in at, right? Because you have that the thought, higher prices always bring on a way to find more lumber somewhere somehow. I mean, unless it's different this time, it could be.
I mean, I will say that one of the things that has surprised me is with the record, with the profitability numbers on Southern Pine, and I don't know if it's a reporting issue, I don't know if it's a labor issue, we know that the cheapest fiber in the world is in the southern U.S., and we know that they've been adding production capability. But that's the thing, I guess, that surprised me the most is that we haven't seen more dramatic increases in those production numbers. And maybe we will, because there's quite a lag in getting those numbers. I mean, we have numbers for maybe the third quarter now, so we won't get fourth quarter numbers for another probably 60 days.
I mean, is that a labor issue, or is it a hard time squeezing out the production out of mills because they just can't get as many people to work or get stuff to move? Charles, maybe you got some insight into that.
Well, I don't know that it's a lot of those mega mills are so heavily automated. I mean, it takes such a small percentage of people to actually run it and get wood out the door. I don't know that's necessarily a labor issue. I know one thing, you talk about new production coming online in the Southeast. One thing that we see locally is there's a logger issue. You've got a logger issue because it's an industry and a way of life that quite frankly has gotten the short end of the stick for the past 40 years. Loggers are still getting paid the same price here that they were in the 80s when their input costs were a third. So, that's one side of it. And it's turning into a consolidation scenario to where a lot of your regional timber buyers are swallowing up some of these smaller operations, and they're dictating wood flows to their biggest customers. So that's one key that goes into it, kind of like what just happened. BFS just bought another big operator out of the Northeast, 19 locations.
National Lumber, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, that's big.
The one thing we're seeing is we're seeing consolidation at the end user level, and we're seeing consolidation at the producer level. So when we come out of this cycle, I mean, I hate to say it, Ash, because back in the day, we were told that the wholesaling was that business was going to go away. I think we've been hearing that for 40 years, and maybe this is the cycle that finally does that.
Yeah, no, I mean, so here's an interesting question too, and an observation.
Sorry, Charles.
I don't know if I agree with that. I got a long road ahead of me. I need you to be a little bit more positive than that.
Hey, Charles, I don't agree with it either, because I think that there's always a place for, people like yourself who are innovative, who are forward thinkers. You're going to find a way to add value in the marketplace. And so you don't have a fear in the world, my friend.
Yeah, so here's the thing I have, the thought I come up with. So we've been getting calls from people that we haven't gotten calls from in 8 or 9 months, 12 months. They're saying these are end users saying, "Hey, I heard lumber prices are up." These are calls that we've gotten. So I guess my question is, can this thing, how much, and Greg, you had a good point when we were talking off of this, end use buyers, especially the large ones, are very smart and astute. They know where the prices are, right? But some don't. But since we went to a 30-day pricing structure for the most part, instead of a 90-day quarterly pricing, has this price been passed on to the sellers? Because what I'm noticing from buyers right now is they're not even squawking about any of the numbers. I mean, maybe they are, but they're not. It was not the way it was. We have 4 digits on almost everything, and everybody's like, "Yeah, we'll pass that price on to the end users." Has that price been passed on? And I mean, does that mean we still have more time left because there's still business that has to be booked, or or what do you think? Is all the business and pricing locked in for Q1 already? I guess my question is, there's one thing where there's people like us sitting here that see the price movement early. There's another thing about the people that have to take that price and go out and build the homes and the multifamily and all that kind of stuff. You kind of answered the multifamily part of it, Greg, that a lot of that's been covered. But what about on the big tract builders and all that? How are they getting their prices delivered into right now? How are they accepting them, and how far out have they locked in?
I mean, big builders were, the price of lumber never mattered to them. They were the one segment last year that just, their message to their suppliers was just don't run out. Now, nobody ran out of lumber. They ran out of all sorts of other products, and, the supply chain issues on Zipboard and LVL and I-joist and, Tech Shield and all of these issues, those were more of the governor on how much, how many homes a guy could build in any given month.
Right.
Labor is also an issue, but the price of lumber is not going to slow big builders down. I mean, if anything, they're telling all of their customers that, you know, they want to build, you know, 10 to 20% more houses next year.
Yeah. Yes, and Greg Kuda was saying here, BC Interior down, but aggregate Canada still up 1.68% month over month. BC Interior still up 6.74 year over year. Aggregate Canada up 3.79 year over year.
Right. So, you know, back to what I was saying before, the interesting thing is there, you know, Canada, which is supposedly the least likely place to be able to increase production, has been able to a greater extent than the U.S. South, which has so much lower costs. And I'm just not sure if it's more of a reporting issue or, you know, something else structural.
There's
but
another,
I do know this, at some point that U.S. South production will show up.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely show up. But Canada can do it faster because they already have the existing infrastructure. That's why those numbers get reported faster. And a lot of these greenfield projects that are cutting, you know, 200, 250 million board foot in the South, they've still got a ways to go because, I mean, riggers are booked out 12, 18, 24 months. So that it's not a matter of labor, it's a matter of timing to get that production online. But to go back to your point as far as, you know, the big builders and them kind of not wanting to run out, right? I think there was a lot of people that were in that standpoint. And, you know, to go back to something that we touched on before is the velocity at which this happened. So you've got, prime example, week before Thanksgiving, we were buying 2-6 16-foot at $390 a thousand. So if we stepped in and bought 45 trucks from my facility and say, you know, we kind of averaged up as we went through, they're not getting the full run of this price yet anyway. They're not going to get it until the middle of January. And when they realize how fast that happened, I think is when the plug gets pulled.
You know, that's a good point, Charles, because this time the pricing escalation wasn't over a 3 or 4 month. They're going to get it. They're just going to get it. Boom.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think they're starting to see that right now from the calls that I'm starting to see is like, hey, lumber was at X and now it's at X. What happened? Right.
Well, a lot of our personal big multifamily guys, I mean, they were locking in January wood second week of December.
Yeah.
Third week of December because they saw it coming. And we did too. So we made those outbound phone calls to make sure that our customer base is making informed decisions. And it's resulted in monumental cost savings. So when there is volatility and we're in a position where we may not be the most competitive price-wise, we've created and instilled value in what we bring to the market. So you can't put a number on that. And I don't know who's been able to do that with the flexibility and the fluidity throughout the tumultuous run, for lack of a better way to describe it.
That's three syllable words in one phrase, Charles. That's kind
of my brain's fried. Scrambled eggs, fellas.
That may have been. So look, let's kind of just.
Hey, Ash, I just want to let you know. I think, you know, Charles is the kind of guy who, in a 7-letter Scrabble game, can open the game with an 8-letter word.
I've been known to surprise a time or two, Greg. Been known to surprise.
Well, so let's just real quick wrap it up like this. So, give me each a reason to be bullish, reason to be bearish, and then what do you see over the next 30 days? And you can be. It can be vast, the thought process on that one. I just wanted to get both sides of it. But then the last one will be, what do you think in the next 30 days, right?
Go ahead, Charles.
No, lead the way. Age before beauty, Greg. Age before beauty.
What? Don't I have both?
I mean, I don't know. What are you trying to say? I know I got gray in my beard, but trying to age me too fast.
I mean, you know, the bullish scenario is clearly, you know, momentum and strong fundamental demand and limitations on how quickly supply can get to the market. You know, we did a poll a month ago. We'll probably get another one out this week. But, you know, at the time when we did that last poll, it kind of said, hey, we're either going back to the old highs or we're going to new lows. It was one or the other. And so given where we are right now, you'd have to, you know, I mean, you can't discount that we're not going to the May highs. You cannot discount that. It's harder to build a It's harder to build a bearish case in the short in the short term just because of the calendar. We're in a period of seasonal strength, but that having been said, we had a much stronger, November through the end of the year. I felt like there was a lot more inventory accumulation than quote unquote normal, but that's hard to quantify. But I will say, my feeling is, hey, listen, we make the long-term seasonals we make a high in the market somewhere between the second week in February and the first week in April. And that in a lot of cases, that can be, if I look back over 25 or 30 years, that's the high of the year. So there you go.
All right, Charles.
I got lost in all of that deep thought.
And they were all 2-syllable words, Charles. Come on, stay with me.
Oh man. Bearish, Greg hit the nail on the head. Bearish scenario is very difficult to establish, but the one thing that I think is vouching for that side of the table is, once again, the strength that we had towards the end of last year, unseasonably, and once again, the volume of wood that was bought, whether it was stuck in reloads or future shipments or what have you. There's something to be said to that, but you can't really gather that data to a fine number, right? As far as being bullish, there's a lot of things that, once again, you've got cheap money, you've got demand, you've got people my age and younger that are out actually working, and a lot of these tech jobs are paying really, really well, and they have cheap money. So their money goes a little bit further. And you also have a mass exodus from some of these bigger metros and coming to places like where I live, and their dollar goes a heck of a lot farther. But I think the new normal is what we're going to have to really lend an ear to and be open to, because we can look at historical data all we want, but what's transpired over the past 24 months has nothing to do with that. And how this whole run up started was the flooding in British Columbia due to lack of supply being able to be shipped, right? Well, a couple of weeks ago or a week and a half ago, I read an article, all that stuff's restored. And, the other side of it is how much Canadian wood was already rolling or set to roll before the meeting on the new tariffs. There's another question. How do you quantify that? So it's very difficult to put a pinpoint on anything. You just got to be open to change. Honestly,
I think
be able to play both sides of it.
One thing that you said, the new normal too. I think that big consolidation that we saw again today. That's been going on for 2 years. So you normally used to have 100 buyers out there that had their pulse in the market, talking to their builders, taking them out for coffee, all that. A lot of those buyers are part of these big corporations now with a lot of money. So my question is, when you're one of these companies that are one of the top 5 or 6, you're buying all of a sudden on the way down, you always hear back from them, we're not buying because of our days of inventory is at this and we are having this. All of a sudden it moves back up. They start buying again. Well, at what point does that guy running the levers back there on days of inventory say to stop buying? Right?
Exactly.
Exactly. But I'm saying is, instead of having 100 people doing it now, there's like 5 entities doing it now, and their job is just to buy lumber, and it's somebody's job to finally at some point say that's enough. But I don't know when that is or how that message gets down there.
Too much is just enough, Ash.
I thought too much was never enough.
No, too much is just enough.
All right, well, cool. So we got our show with Matt Lehman tomorrow. That should be fun. And then Mike's got his show on Friday, Smart Market Call. So, guys, I appreciate you guys taking your time today. And aloha and mahalo, Greg, I guess, right?
Hey, try to keep it on the down low. Come on. It's the great thing about the new work environment. You can be anywhere. You can be anywhere in the world. There you go.
Yeah. Yep. Appreciate it, guys. Have a great day.
Charles, good to see you, brother.
Hey, y'all too. Have a good one.